Hello and welcome to Paizo Live. My name is Aaron Shanks and I'm Paizo's. Pardon me one moment while I mute something that should be muted. I apologize. Aaron Shanks, Paizo's marketing and media manager. And today is Friday, June 25th. It's our fourth episode of Paizo Live, and we're happy to have you with us. It's a big show today. I've got 7 guests talking about a lot of major products that we are announcing, that we are releasing on, either have just released or are releasing on July 7th. We have 4 different segments today. First, we'll have organized play, and then the Pathfinder Lost Omens panel. After the second break, we'll talk more about Starfinder Galaxy Exploration Manual and have another break. And then the last seminar panel will be James Jacobs and James Case talking about all things Pathfinder. So that's what we do here. We talk a little bit about a lot of Pathfinder and Starfinder. So welcome. Let's meet our first guests. First, let's meet Mike Kimmel. Hello, Mike.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thanks.
So, Mike, you're our Pathfinder Society developer.
Yeah.
That's kind of news in and of itself, yes?
Yes, it is. I started here with Paizo just in January as an organized play developer and have just recently moved into sort of more of a lead role with Pathfinder Society.
That's terrific. So we'll definitely be talking about the year ahead for Pathfinder Society. And we have another guest. Jenny, do you want to join us?
Hey, how's
Hello.
everyone? Hello.
Nice to have you here. Jenny, you're the
Great to be here.
Starfinder Society developer.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
So are we safe to assume that you and Mike have similar roles within organized play?
Yeah, so technically what both of us do is we are both in charge of our product line. So, oh gosh, sorry, y'all are going to see a cat visiting a few times. I apologize. So
Excellent.
yeah, I
You
have a Patra as a special guest here to talk about Starfinder Society, but I am the lead developer for Starfinder Society. So I come up with the Metaplot, things like that, prepare to launch like a new season. And Mike does the same thing, but for Pathfinder Society. So he's kind of the guiding creative voice and lead for that program. We work with a lot of other awesome people, obviously, and our freelance authors, but I do the same thing for Starfinder Society. So pretty much the same roles, just across the different programs.
Excellent. And
Really? Gosh, sorry. Oh goodness.
So for someone who's new to Pathfinder and Starfinder and hasn't really heard of organized play before, what is that in a nutshell?
So basically, Organized Play is a worldwide program where you can sign up, you can register a character of your own that you've made, and you can go play that character at an event across the world. You could go to Seattle and play like at your local game store, or right now, probably online. You could also take that character to, a big con like Gen Con, or go overseas and play in Germany or play in Brazil at a random comic store there. So, we have this really amazing worldwide community that's linked by this program. And we have these adventures that release. We have adventures coming out every month. We call them scenarios that you can play through with your characters, releasing at various levels. And there is, as we've mentioned, there's kind of this ongoing meta plot, sort of like with a TV show has its seasons and its villains and recurring themes that go on. We have that going every year for both of our programs.
Excellent. Yeah, my favorite local game store just opened back up. So I'm personally hoping to do both. Find an online game through your online lodge. What is the right phrase for your online team? Is it a lodge or something else?
I believe they typically will call themselves like lodges. There's like the online lodge, and we have venture captains and venture officers who are just volunteer folks who work really hard to organize these events, and they work closely with the like operations side of our team to put on cons and do local game days. But we do have a very, very vibrant online community. as well as people just all over the world, all over the United States and other countries as well. So if you're interested in finding a game and you're not in one, go to paizo.com/organizedplay. You're going to see all of our blogs with all of our new releases and information about the program. And if you want to learn about what society is, like both in-game in terms of our setting and what it is in terms of our organization, you can find pages there that will help you with that. But that also has resources for like frequently asked questions, retailers, and where to find us, like where to and how to contact your venture officer who can help you get started with playing. So
Excellent.
Anybody out there who's thinking about that, that's what I'd encourage you to do, is go check it out.
Great. Yeah. So like I said, I think I'll be knocking on the door of my favorite local game store and finding the physical organized play society games there, and then also trying it online so that I can experience it from both sides. Welcome back, Mike. Thank you for joining us.
Sure.
I want to talk a little bit about the years that we have going on, these seasons, these metaplots, both in Pathfinder Society and Starfinder Society. Is it a little like, I'm of a certain age where X-Files was quite the event, and we always used to talk about how there was the conspiracy theory meta plot, and then there would be like a monster episode that was very standalone, contained, and didn't really relate to the overarching plot. Is society play a little like that?
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it, because we want to have kind of a continuous story for folks so they can experience that sort of campaign feel. But we also recognize people might be hopping in to play at a store and want to sit down and play without necessarily knowing all of the background of everything that's been going on. And these are meant to be kind of one-shot things. So they all kind of stand alone in some way, and then some of them also contribute to that ongoing plot.
Yes,
Great.
and actually, sorry to cut in, but recently we actually started labeling our scenarios with a Metaplot sticker that signals this is the plot of the season, of the year, so to speak. It's tied into that. It's tied into, Year of the Data Scourge or Year of Shattered Sanctuaries that we'll be talking about soon. Or if it's a standalone season agnostic scenario that you can just play as a one shot that has nothing to do with it. So I think that's going to also help our players decide what they want to play and with which character, because a lot of our people that play a lot end up with multiple characters of different levels playing in these games.
Excellent. How long does a scenario usually take, Jenny, to play? Is it meant to last a couple of hours or more?
Yeah, it generally will last anywhere between like 3 to 5 hours is kind of the sweet spot. There are some that are notorious for going a bit longer, depending on levels. Our higher level scenarios, we often will say, please schedule like 5 hours for them. They could go longer. I know of some role play heavy groups that have literally sat and played a scenario for like 12 hours. This is them wanting to, though. This is a group that was very, very into it and into character. But generally, yes, our scenarios are about 4 hours on average. We have quests or bounties on the Pathfinder side that Mike can talk about that I think are about 45 minutes to an hour. So those are more approachable for a group that just wants a quick and dirty thing to play.
That's great. And so this year we've launched this year's society season, and it's called the Year of the Data Scourge. Yes.
Yep, definitely. That started back at PaizoCon. Yeah.
Great. And how many scenarios started that? Was it just one, and you jump right in and everybody plays it, or were there several to choose from?
So at PaizoCon, we actually just released, and yes, that is the awesome art that we have for Year of the Data Scourge. It's I love that art. Every time I see it, it makes me happy. So there's actually just one intro scenario. It's for characters 1st through 4th level. So you can bring your kind of new characters or make a new character or grab a pre-gen just for that. It is one scenario just called Year of the Data Scourge that introduces this digital attack on Absalom Station that's spreading throughout the Pact Worlds. And you are a group of Starfinders who are trying to fight your way across this glitching Absalom Station and help people as you can with tech support. At the same time, there's hostile robots attacking, and it's just chaotic until you get to, your goal is to get to the Starfinder Society headquarters at the Lore Spire complex and get through this. And we have 2 other intro scenarios that we just released. They don't have to do with the Data Scourge, but they're perfect for your new 1st and 2nd level characters who, you've just created, especially if you're new to the society. And we like to encourage people to run those as a little bundle of like a 3 scenario series, over like a weekend or a couple of weeks with a local group or with your friends. And that'll get you ready. It'll have you a character all set up and ready for the Data Scourge to do the rest of the adventures that are coming out in the next couple of months.
Excellent. It's not too late. That's what I hear.
Oh, no, not at all. Definitely.
So you can join in on a particular year at any time. It's just that if you want to be cutting edge and playing the most current scenarios, you might have a little catching up to do, but that's half the fun.
Exactly.
And I also heard you talk about Absalom Station. So I know that the Starfinder Beginner Box adventure takes place there. So conceivably, you could sort of, someone who is brand new to Starfinder could use the Beginner Box adventure to sort of learn some of the basics of Starfinder. I know that the Beginner Box is actually really great for someone who doesn't play RPGs at all. Like, it really introduces the concept to them if they're very green. And then there's a more deluxe version of the full Starfinder core rulebook rules that you can be introduced to, and that's what you'd be using for this first Starfinder scenario, Year of the Data Scourge, right?
Absolutely. I would encourage that, in fact, because start with either that beginner box, then move into our number 1 intro, the first test, and then for the factions. The first test is going to introduce you to the society. It has the characters going after a mysterious signal and kind of delving down into these weird ruins on a planet that no one's been to before. And they get to meet a new species. And there's actually some randomizable elements that are pretty easy for the GM to run using some tables in the back of the scenario so that groups can replay it and have different experiences. So you're not like replaying the same thing every time. Then number 2 is for the factions, and that will introduce you to our major factions in the organization. You'll kind of get to know what they're about. It's 4 little quests, essentially, that are all rolled up into one adventure. And then from there, of course, you could move into Year of the Data Scourge and get into that, see what that's all about, and if you like it. But the cool thing about starting with Beginner Box on Absalom Station is that some interesting things and exciting and scary things happen to Absalom Station in the Year of the Data Scourge. So it'll be a great reference point for you in character and as a player to see what's happening and to really feel that impact, I think.
That's great. Yeah, I just want to, bring up Absalom Station because it's such a cornerstone for the campaign setting, and it's great to see how it's all tied in together. Someone who plays Starfinder on Alexa on their smart speaker, the new game where you can play that. That takes place on Absalom Station as well. So, and it's inspired by their beginner box. So, I really like the fact that this is the space station that starts it all, and you can take your adventure to the stars from there. I know that society play that the players can actually change the course of the world, change the course of the plot. It's interactive, it's dynamic. The decisions that everybody makes can affect the future. Can you hint for us what's at stake in this plot line? Do you have an idea of what the decision tree holds ahead, or is that too much of a spoiler? Because it's okay if you say it is.
Well, I can give you at least a little preview. So with the Year of the Data Scourge, there's going to be a few scenarios. The ones that are coming out actually next week. We have Settling Accounts is one that is a standalone. It's not related to the series or to the Metaplot. Sorry, the Data Scourge series, I guess you could say. But Battle for the Beacon is the next Data Scourge Metaplot scenario that comes out. It's for mid-level characters, so starting at level 5 to level 8. The interesting thing about Starfinder and Pathfinder Society is it's not like a video game where you level one character from level 1 to like level 100, but you might experience the season over multiple characters, or multiple sessions, which I think it's different, but I think it's really cool. But the Battle for the Beacon has some choices you can make with some NPC organizations and who you side with, who you work with. And that might all determine what ends up happening in terms of who our allies are going forward. I have some other plans as well for a scenario coming out, Mission Not Found. And it is another one where we are trying to recruit a powerful ally, and depending on the PCs and how successful they are, we may or may not have that person on our side, or something completely unexpected could happen. So this season series is going to be very, very dependent on what players do and their actions, and if they're able to help unravel these mysteries and figure out who or what is behind this attack before it's too late. So really, the Pact Worlds itself might be at stake. So I think you should get out there and play if we need your help.
Help us. You're our only hope.
Yes, exactly.
That's great. Mike, let's talk about the Pathfinder Society year ahead. We're just wrapping up 1 year right now, and the next one launches in August, yes?
Yes, that's right. So we're wrapping up year 2. We have the penultimate scenario coming out next week for year 2 Metaplot, and then that'll wrap up next month. And then we have August at PaizoCon Europe Online. We'll be launching year 3.
And year 3 is the year of Shattered Sanctuaries, yes?
Yeah, that's right.
I know there's some art, art and fiction on our blogs that sort of launches both Pathfinder Society and Starfinder Society. These new mega metaplots that don't miss it if you make sure you go back to Paizo.com and read that fiction, because it gives you a perspective as to what these new plots are going to be like. Mike, what can you tell us about this image and what the year ahead holds for us in Pathfinder Society?
Well, there have been a lot of folks looking at that image, trying to figure out who all the people are in there, and speculating, because those symbols up there are ones we haven't seen in quite some time. So the Pathfinder Society has different factions that your character can be a member of, and those images, people look at those and go, wait a minute, some of those are some of the classic factions from way back, like several iterations of Pathfinder Society in the past. And so
this
a lot of speculation about what's this art is brand new. And the symbols though are from times long past.
And so that's maybe a clue as to what's happening. All of these old symbols are coming back to the present.
Yeah, so one of the things that you mentioned was sort of the idea of players having an impact on the story. And so one of the things that we want to explore in this year is kind of a series of problems that have been arising at some very important places in the Pathfinder Society's history, and looking at decisions that have been made in the past, as well as decisions that can be made now that might impact things. So there's going to be a little bit of maybe some nostalgic elements for older players, but also some opportunities for newer players to learn about the history of the Pathfinder Society, and also for all players, wherever they're coming in, whether they're brand new, just starting now or in August, or whether they've been playing for a decade, for everyone to sort of be involved in making these big decisions about these different locations we're visiting. And some stuff might change. Some NPCs and some important locations might be heavily impacted by the events of this year.
That sounds exciting. I can imagine veteran society players getting a hold of new players and saying, okay, this is the backstory for this symbol. Out of game, and just sharing all the adventures that they had with older characters, using the older factions and all the backstories and all the adventures, and in person at your favorite local game store, drinking a beverage. It's all very crystal clear to me. It sounds like a great time.
That's the hope.
Yeah, exactly. Or online, with friends around the world. That's half the fun as well. Let's see what else. We know that this is debuting in August, and so that's when the new plotline starts. And then I think actually there's some hints of a little stream crossing, a little worlds collide, a little Pathfinder meets Starfinder. Are you two able to tell us a little bit about what's going on there and when that might happen?
Well,
let's go jump back over to Jenny.
Well, so yes, there has been some speculation and there's been some teasing of this on the blog, but just I will tell you, you can hear it here first, that I am absolutely confirming that the interactive specials for Gen Con for Pathfinder and Starfinder Society will in fact be a crossover episode. So we are going to have a cross time and dimension adventure of both the Pathfinders coming in from the past and exploring a location, while the Starfinders in the distant future explore the same location. And they will all, both groups will have an effect on the storyline. In fact, while they can be played alone, if you're only able to play the Pathfinder special, you'll have fun. If you're only able to play the Starfinder one, you'll have fun. I highly, highly recommend you try to sign up for both as a player or a GM at some point, because you will not see the full resolution of the story unless you play both of them. They are intertwined, and you as Pathfinders and Starfinders will have impact in both of your timelines. So it's going to be pretty cool. We've never done anything like this before, and I'm really, really excited about it.
That's really exciting. The comic book geek in me is really exciting, because it feels like you have to go, buy one volume of this comic book over here and to know what happens.
Yeah.
And, you get several volumes of the comic books to line up the complete plot. And that's going to be just a little taste of that in Pathfinder and Starfinder Society. What do you know about that? Anything to add, Mike, about how that's going to work?
Well, I can say that I wasn't directly involved in this. Thurston Hillman, the previous Pathfinder Society developer, worked with Jenny on this particular one, but I'm very excited for future opportunities, and I want to see how this goes. So we really are going to be paying attention, listening to the community, seeing the reaction, and I have ideas. Yeah.
I'm sure. Well, that's great. It's been great getting to talk to both of you and finding out a little bit more about what's going on in Pathfinder Society and Starfinder Society. Were those your Pathfinder, your Paizo Live spoilers, or do you have something up your sleeve to be able to share with us as well before we part ways and move on to the next panel?
Jenny, you want to go first?
Jenny, do you have one?
That was going to be my major spoiler, was the crossover episode between Starfinder and Pathfinder Society. So
excellent. Well, I'm glad I got it in there. And Mike, do you have one that you had in mind?
Sure. So one of the earliest scenarios for year 3, for the Metaplot I mentioned, we're revisiting all these classic locations. A classic location for me, the first scenario I ever wrote as a freelancer was set in the Mwangi Expanse, which you're going to be talking about here, I gather, in just a little bit. So my spoiler is that the first scenario that I fully outlined myself while at Paizo is also going to be taking place in a place called the Laughing Jungle in Vidrian in the Mwangi Expanse early in Season 3. So look forward to that.
Excellent. I'll be picking your brain to make sure that we cross-reference all the Mwangi opportunities that the Society has, so that, I know that you can play, the Slithering is an adventure that takes place there, but my top, there's a lot of Society opportunities to explore Mwangi as well, so that's really exciting. Looking forward to that. Jenny, where can people find you on the interwebs, or where would you like to be found?
on the interwebs. I can be found on Twitter at Jarzabski. I will actually put that in chat here in a second for those who'd like. I also do some streaming of various video games. I have like a little community that hangs out. We're pretty casual. We have a lot of fun over at Jezebel77 here on Twitch. So you can find me in either of those places and probably others besides, but that is where I'm more likely to be receptive and wanting to chat. So hope to see you out there.
Excellent. And Mike, where would you like to be found?
You can find me on Twitter as well at _Mike Kimmel, and I mostly use that account for hyping Pathfinder Society. So you might see occasional teasers there, not anything content, big stuff, but just my little maniacal laughter and things like that happening on Twitter.
Excellent. All right. I have seen it, and there's a lot of teasing going on, and I very much enjoy it. Thank you both for your time this evening. And we'll say goodbye to the both of you for now, and take a little break, about 4 minutes long. And when we come back, we'll have our panel on the Mwangi Expanse. We'll see you soon.
The latest releases for the Pathfinder and Starfinder role-playing games are arriving at your local game store and Paizo.com. The worlds of infinite space are yours to discover with the Galaxy Exploration Manual. This essential reference includes rules for creating and exploring science fantasy worlds, from planets and asteroids to colony ships and more. You'll also find rules on 12 biomes, from deserts and jungles to the zero-G vacuum of space. New abilities for all 10 Starfinder classes, rules for expanding a world's culture, and tactics and advice for the Game Master in running a space exploration campaign. For new adventurers, including the fanciful March of Urwal, in Breaking the Storm, Bastion, and the Embers, await members of the Pathfinder Society. Learn more at pathfindersociety.club and join a game with friends from around the world or across the table. Wrap up the year of Exploration's Edge with new scenarios, including Frozen Ambitions, Renewal's Blight, and the Vast Experiment Dancing at the Edge. And jump into the year of the Data Scourge with new Starfinder Society adventures. Just getting started? Check out Intro Number 1, the first test, and Intro Number 2 for the factions as starting points for your Starfinder Society agents at starfindersociety.club. More than 300 monsters come to life on your tabletop with the Bestiary 3 Pawn Collection, including new dragons, golems, and troops. Each pawn is printed on sturdy cardstock and is the perfect addition to your gaming arsenal. Whether it's a sudden disaster that strikes during a sailing voyage or the focus of a treasure map, Shipwrecks presents a memorable site for adventure. Pathfinder Flipbat Shipwrecks provide 2 different shipwrecks to use in your table. The Pathfinder Potions and Talismans deck contain 110 cards detailing every consumable item in the Pathfinder core rulebook, including oils, potions, talismans, and more. Each card features statistics, descriptions, and beautiful full-color illustrations. Adventure and danger is around every curve with Flip Mat Classics Twisted Caverns. This 24 by 30-inch mat has a special coating that allows for easy removal of wet, dry, and permanent markers. The Pathfinder Flip Tiles Urban Waterfront Expansion Set adds Lighthouse Isle, Piers, Boardwalk, Waterfront Alleys, Shoreline, Beacon, Harbor, and Waterway tiles to the core set, expanding your city adventures to new locations. Each 6 by 6-inch square tile is double-sided and just as easy to erase as our other map products. More than 100 pawns from the Alien Archive 4 are now available. Printed on sturdy cardstock, each pawn contains a beautiful full-color image of an alien from Starfinder's 4th collection of interplanetary threats and unique player character races. Starfinder Flip Tiles Alien Planet Moonscape expansion provides beautifully illustrated 6-inch by 6-inch map tiles that can be used to create the wide vistas of a crated planetoid or icy moon. Inside, you'll find 24 richly crafted double-sided map tiles to create a variety of extraterrestrial environments for endless planetary encounters. This 24 by 30-inch double-sided map features a starship crash site and its surroundings on one side and the damaged interior of the starship on the other. Don't waste time sketching when you could be playing with Starfinder Flip Mat Crash Starship. You'll be ready the next time your players come in for a rough landing. Find your path to friendship adventure with these new releases and more at Paizo.com and your favorite local game store.
Hello and welcome back to Paizo Live. I'm Aaron Shanks, your host, and it's my pleasure to introduce to you two of the Pathfinder Lost Omens Mwangi Expanse team members. We have Eleanor, our Pathfinder designer,
Hello.
Hello, welcome Eleanor. Nice to have you.
Nice to be here.
A team of you're one half of the Lost Omens team with Luis Loza as your
Indeed.
comrade in arms, and happy to have you this month. And as our other guest, we have Jabari Weathers. Jabari, would you join us?
Hi.
Hello, welcome.
It's great being here.
Jabari. Yeah. I'm very excited to get the perspective of one of our freelance authors involved in this project. So let's have you tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you come to become an author, and how did you come to be involved with Paizo on the Mwangi Expanse project?
So it's interesting. I actually, before 2019, I'd largely been working as an illustrator, primarily in freelance.
Goodness, yes,
Um,
I've seen that work.
but,
It's
but a lot
amazing.
of
Yes.
but and I still do that. But those same pathways kind of like led me into indie role playing games, which then led me to the connection that brought me into working with Paizo. Last summer, when working on the Mwangi Expanse, Misha Buschjäger, who is another author that worked on the book, reached out to me and said that there was a spot that needed filling for some of the content on this book. So she's the one that actually put me in touch with Eleanor and Luis. And from there, I ended up writing the intro and two cities. So
Excellent. So, Eleanor, that's, I guess, your first introduction to Jabari was it through, not Michelle, but what's that person's name? Misha. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd actually seen Jabari around through their illustration work, but I hadn't actually realized they were an author at the time. So it was a bit of a surprise that when I was contacted to say, yeah, they are an author and they would be interested in taking up these missing slots. But I'm very glad for it because the work was amazing and I enjoyed working with Jabari very much.
Wonderful. So I think I heard that Jabari was involved in the introduction. Was that how was that process? Was that Jabari started the introduction and wrote the majority of it, and then it was crafted by you and Luis, or you and Luis really had a strong outline that you wanted Jabari, to fill in some blanks? What did that look like?
We had an outline. I couldn't tell you how strong it is at this point in the game. That was over a year and a half ago, but
Indeed.
I would credit the whole thing to Jabari's writing. It was just a very excellent overview of everything, and it said everything we knew that we needed to say.
Well, I guess I'm just so excited about this book. Let's take a step back and talk about what it is for people who might not know about the Mwangi Expanse. Eleanor, the Lost Omens line is our setting line. The books are like 80-20, 80% lore, 20% crunchy rules. That's the way I like to explain it. This Mwangi Expanse is, I believe, the first book that really dives deep into one of the 10 meta regions that was outlined in our Pathfinder core rulebook. Um, and I know it was introduced in the core rulebook. It was developed a little more in the World Guide, the Lost Omens World Guide. And where else can people find out about the Mwangi Expanse other than this book, Eleanor?
There's a lot of pieces that have been through the entirety of the Lost Omens line. Really, there's a few gods from Mwangi. I think it's majorly Grandmother Spider, but you can find a few in there. You can find information on the Magambia and the Firebrands, who are two organizations that are very focused in the Mwangi Expanse. The Magambia is very, very centered in that area. But the Firebrands are sort of spread out through Avestan and Garund. But they like to focus a lot in Vidrian because of the recent rebellion there against the colonialists who were running the place. And they also like to hang out in Ravenel because there was likewise a rebellion there against Cheliax. If you look in Lost Omens Legends, there's a number of prominent people outlined in that book, their stories and how they relate to other places in the Expanse, which gives you more of a, personal view of what we usually have as a very overarching setting. And then, of course, the Mwangi Expanse book itself outlines the whole thing. The Ancestry Guide has options for people you might see down in that area. If you look, there's a lot of things that you can use for playing in this area of the world.
And now it's increased in detail by over 300 pages, as I understand.
It's a large book.
It's a large book.
There's so much
I think
content.
there is beautiful art, beautiful content.
There's so much content, and I think people wanted more, but we're sorry. We have limits.
Well, if it's anything, I think it's pretty clear that every time you publish a Lost Omens book that isn't specifically devoted to one of those 10 regions, they all get a little love. I very much expect that future Lost Omens books will continue to contribute to what we know about Mwangi Expanse. It's part of the core 10 meta regions. It's just, I feel like it's the one that people knew the least about. And it's certainly the one that's essentially the only one that's non-Western, if I'm not mistaken. Eleanor, does that sound right?
There's the Impossible Lands, there's the Golden Road,
Okay.
Parts of the Broken Lands. Basically around the crown of the world, there's some areas that
you would call non-Western.
Yeah.
But
I think people have been wanting to explore this area for a long time and have been asking questions for a long time. And I'm very glad to get this book out to them so they can see this vibrant campaign setting that has been put together by all of our authors.
Okay, enough about you, Eleanor. Let's talk about Jabari.
Yeah, get me out of here. Take that window right off.
Jabari, we'd love to know more about. So you were able to contribute to the introduction, but let's rewind a little bit and talk about some of the other things you've done for Paizo, either before this particular project or after, because as Eleanor said, it was some time ago that you actually probably wrote it. So you and I were chatting a little earlier about some of the projects you've been involved in. What can you share?
So everything that I've been doing with Paizo has actually come after the work that I did on this book.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And so probably the most prominent thing outside of the Mwangi Expanse is I'm working on a Starfinder adventure path, actually. So there's Horizons of the Vast.
Yes, Horizons of the Vast.
And I have an adventure that I wrote with great assistance from Jason Keeley, who's been amazing in guiding that whole ship. Let's see, there's also something else that I'll save for a spoiler a little bit later. But yeah, the bulk of what I've done. Oh, and there's a little bit of like extra content that I wrote for Fists of the Ruby Phoenix. So I wrote a bunch of fighting tournaments that crop up.
Yeah. We'll be talking to James Case later in the show, and he's the primary author of the third volume of Fists of the Ruby Phoenix. But I believe what I saw from you was a backmatter article specifically on fighting tournaments everywhere else, through the planes, through the multiverse. That sounded pretty challenging considering, and probably pretty high level considering most of them seemed fairly interplanar. Does that sound like what you wrote?
Yeah, there's one in particular that's they're all pretty anime. If I'm being reductive in the way that I present them, but there's one in particular that's like a dream Matrix fight, but with magic. Is the best way that I could put it. So I'm really excited to see people get their hands on it and see what they do with it.
Excellent. Well, yes, both Mwangi Expanse and all 3 volumes of The Fists of the Ruby Phoenix. The street date is July 7th. So everyone is about to see all the things all at once. That's we have a big release date on the 7th, so that's what's really exciting. And of course, some of our subscribers have already received their PDF copies of some of these products. So our forums and Twitter and social media and Reddit are all kind of abuzz with the Paizo vanguards who have gotten early glimpses about these products, and they're all chatting about them, and it's been great to see the reception so far. I can't wait for them to be officially released into the world. Let's segue back into Mwangi Expanse and the cities that you got to develop.
Sure.
Can you tell us what those are?
So the cities that I drafted were Jaha and Osibu. Both of them were a joy. I'm not sure where to start with either of them, but the first one that I guess I'll start from the beginning. The first one that I wrote of the two was Jaha. And in both of them, it was interesting trying to like track down the like kind of like the core themes of each place. So Jaha is like a recently deserted city that's reoccupied by 2 different lineages of people who have a fraught relationship in that city. On one hand, you have the Uruxi lizard folk, who are descendants of people who were enslaved by the other people that were that occupy the space, which are the Ligurni people, and their prior occupants actually came to the city after the lizard folk that were previously there in Jaha, and called themselves the Jahan, and ended up enslaving the lizard folk before all of the people that were there vanished. So now you have the second wave of both of these groups grappling with that and trying to figure out what happened in that city, while also having them make sure that this new community doesn't backslide into all of the mistakes that city is displaying. And
Osibu, your alliances.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm just it makes you ask questions like, are your alliances to the people who came, the ancestry that you are a part of, and the people who came before you, or are your alliances to the people who are in front of you and sharing this space with you? I mean, that's a really interesting conundrum that would be good to explore. But go on.
It's the so the other city, to speak of Osibu a little bit. It's this hidden away, like it's this tucked away paradise, but it's so protected that the ways that it's protected require anyone who stumbles upon it to either swear it to secrecy or give up their memory of it, essentially, when they leave. And yet, at the same time, it has kind of this ticking time bomb in the middle of it, known as the Nemesis Well, if I remember correctly. It's been a minute since I wrote this. But it's... but there's just this well of arcana that's slowly expanding throughout the bottom of this paradise, essentially, and kind of threatening this nexus of like really amazing knowledge on like a medical level, and on a natural level. Like the people that live there have these ways of like placating the wilderness around them and around the city, where if you were to visit this place, you would be able to interact with like many of the dangerous creatures of the Mwangi Expanse much more easily than anywhere else you could probably go. So between these two, I don't know, I had a lot of fun with trying to map out both of them. One was interesting, like trying to write this protected paradise. The other pulled a lot, Jaha in particular, pulled a lot from like a lot of sci-fi sources, actually. Like I was thinking a lot about the Alien franchise when I look back at the things that I wrote in that, and like, not that like xenomorphs crawling around and everything, but like more like the question of the space jockey is something that like really, that was kind of like a guiding principle for me in terms of like what happens when you have a group that goes to a recently deserted city and they don't know the circumstances of the disappearance. And they also have these astrological links in their culture.
That could be, I could imagine that in a sci-fi setting, easily, and just the fact that a whole group of people sort of vanished and disappeared is pretty high fantasy, and you can draw from a lot of different sources for inspiration. So creepy and exciting.
Extremely creepy.
Totally. I think hearing those stories about those two cities really reinforced the idea to me that the Mwangi Expanse can be an entire campaign setting for someone. There's a lot to explore here, like 300 pages of really interesting fantasy fiction that it feels fresh and yet familiar, in that all of these adventure hooks feel like something you'd want to dive right into. So thank you for exploring that with us. I could talk to you for another hour about your influences and the things that you wrote in the introduction, but we should probably keep things moving. Let's talk a little bit about your just where people can find you, or how you would like to be found on Twitter or email or a website or anything.
You can find me on Twitter at Goblin Princet. That's Goblin and then Princete.
Yes.
And that's also the spelling for my portfolio site, goblinprincet.com. Yes. You can find that it'll link to the same URL if you also type in jmwillustration.com. And that's also my main Instagram, JMW Illustration. So those are places you can find me.
And do you have a Paizo Live spoiler for us? I believe there is a project that you're working on that you wanted to give us a little sneak peek about.
Yeah, so I got to work with Ron Lundin last summer, shortly after working in the Mwangi Expanse, on an short adventure for Free RPG Day called Threshold of Knowledge, which ties back into the Mwangi Expanse, and more specifically the magic school of the Magambia in Antabu.
Excellent. That's exciting. Now I know that that's going to be normally free RPG products are released in June, but because of the pandemic, they've pushed back that product to October. So it sounds like we can all look forward to introducing our friends who have never played role-playing games to the free role-playing. You walk into your favorite local game store and you pick up that free RPG and you say, we're going to the magic school together. And you can have just a little adventure that takes place in the Mwangi Expanse and in the magic school, and just give them a taste of what's in store with Strength of Thousands. So that sounds really exciting. Thank you for sharing. And Eleanor, where would you like to be found?
I would not like to be found. Please do not perceive.
That's fair. But I can tell you that we have our Paizo forums, and if folks can post messages there, and some of us have our DMs open. I'm not sure if everybody does, but we can definitely get a hold of Eleanor if need be. And Eleanor, do you have a Paizo Live spoiler for us today?
Yes. If you liked the sound of the city of Osibu, the adventurers will be going there in the Strength of Thousands adventure path. So try not to mess it up too badly. It's very nice.
Now, which city was this? There's the one where there's the two competing groups, and then there's the one where it was like a secret paradise, and this was
Osibu is the secret paradise.
Okay.
At least it was before your players got there.
Yeah.
Try not to mess it up for everyone else.
That sounds great. Okay, well, that's a great spoiler. Thank you very much. And do you know which volume that is of the 6?
I don't know off the top of my head, so we'll consider that a different spoiler on a different day.
Yes, exactly. It's in the future, and it will become clear. So great. Thank you, Eleanor. We appreciate that. Thank you both for joining me, and we'll let you go for this evening, and hope to have you both back soon. Now we'll take a little break, and when we come back, we'll talk some more Starfinder Galaxy Exploration Manual. We'll be right back.
On the southern coast of Starstone Isle, not far from the town of Otari, the Gauntlet stands shrouded by cloying mists atop a centuries-old ruin in the Fogfin Swamp. Now, a pallid new light glows from within the ancient edifice, beckoning novice explorers to delve deep into the marsh to discover the truth behind the awakened radiance. The town elders of Otari say that the old lighthouse has been abandoned for ages, that the swamp itself holds little danger to the town. The town elders are wrong. Into the Mega Dungeon, the all-new Abomination Vault's adventure path for the Pathfinder role-playing game peels back layer after layer of mystery, intrigue, and terror in a 3-volume campaign of dungeon exploration and thrilling discovery, designed especially with new players in mind. The priceless plunder of long centuries awaits those bold enough to enter the sprawling Abomination Vaults. But claiming it requires facing off against a horde of hideous monsters, deadly traps, and vengeful ghosts with long memories and inhuman hungers. The Abomination Vault's adventure path works with the Pathfinder Beginner Box or Pathfinder Core Rulebook, and is your perfect gateway to thrilling adventure 500 years in the making.
So, you used to work for Edge Corp, huh? Taking it to the edge and all that. You were just a long hauler, shipping cargo from one planet to another for low pay, worse benefits, and the promise of a bonus that never showed up. Now, you're your own boss, looking for cargo you can buy for cheap and sell for bank. Jobs are everywhere. Absalom Station, sure, but the Veskarium too. Near space, even the Vast. Get used to the drift, cause you're gonna be flying long hauls. And some of the things that live in that place, they don't like visitors. I heard Edge Corp is still after you. Something about a stolen ship? And the Golden League is after you too? You got a long list of enemies, hotshot. You better start making some friends. Cause if there's one thing I've learned in a lifetime of carrying freight, it's that every bill comes due. If you really want to be free to go where you want, do as you please, you're gonna have to settle up with these people. And revenge ain't cheap. Don't say I didn't warn you.
Hello, and welcome back to the Starfinder segment of Paizo Live. I'm Aaron Shanks, your host, and I would now like to introduce you to Joe, the Starfinder lead designer. Hello, Joe.
Hey there, Aaron. How you doing?
Good. That's Joe Pasini there. He's our Starfinder lead designer. And Joe, how long have you been with Paizo? Has it been a few years now?
It's been a while. I joined as a contract editor in 2016. So I'll let you do the math. I don't feel like I want to count up all those years right now. But
it's been a few. That's great.
Yeah.
And I know that you were last on our show. I think it was our first show in. So it's been about 3 months, and then we got to hear a lot about the Starfinder Galaxy Exploration Manual at PaizoCon, where you were part of a panel. And then there was an hour-long interview with No Direction, and then I think they had you on their show as well for an hour. So it's great that we've been able to really showcase the Starfinder Galaxy Exploration Manual, and I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that all of those recordings are on YouTube. So if you missed any of them, you can circle back and find out hear Joe and the rest of the Starfinder team talk about the Galaxy Exploration Manual, because it's a pretty awesome book. You can also, I believe I've counted 4 blogs that we've published fairly recently. One is a really cool piece of fiction inspired by the Galaxy Exploration Manual that you can read to kind of get you inspired. I believe Jenny wrote that one, if I'm not mistaken. And then there's a second. Does that sound right?
I'm not sure who wrote the fiction, actually.
Yeah, I think it's Jenny.
Okay, cool, awesome.
and then there's a blog on player options by John Compton. Yep. And then I think you've written 2 blogs, one on the toolbox that's available, like a GM toolbox. I think that's what we mean by a toolbox. And the latest one is the world building system. So there are 4 blogs there that you can go check out to learn more about the Starfinder Galaxy Exploration Manual. It has officially been released. Go ahead.
Yeah. There is one more that's already
yeah.
come out that is by Jason Tondro, who wrote the Sandbox Adventure chapter. We can talk about it in a second, but he wrote a blog about that, I believe. I believe
Right.
that one up.
I probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Or soon
this
will
might
be if it isn't already.
Yes,
Right.
right.
Indeed. So we've tried to really, highlight the strengths of this hardcover in sort of bite-sized chunks with those blogs and get you all started. So let's just kind of quickly talk about what the book has in it for people who maybe haven't heard about it. Joe, what's your elevator pitch about what the Starfinder Galaxy Exploration Manual is, if you had to explain it to someone who knows what Starfinder is, but maybe doesn't know quite what this book is?
So this is a bit of a cross between a game master's guide and a sandbox adventure book. So if Starfinder assumes that you and your party of characters are on a starship, and we have lots and lots of setting information, and we'll continue producing it. But sometimes you just want to point your starship out into space and say go and see what you find out there. And this book is all about doing that. So it starts with a lot of content for player options that give you ways to generate your player's background that hook into all sorts of different science fantasy elements that could be out there in the unexplored galaxy. There's class options for all the classes. There's equipment that's tied to exploration, and there's an exploration subsystem. So it takes you from what I was talking about before, just pointing your ship into space, like where are you going? How do you figure that out? How do you find a place to explore in the first place? And then once you get there, how do you learn more about it and figure out what's there? There's a system for that as well. Then there's a chapter all about building worlds, which you build entire planets or even stranger worlds at random, or you can pick and choose things you like as you go. And you can use that, for if you're a GM and you need your players are just wandering off into the galaxy somewhere, you can use that to sort of create worlds on the fly and have them adventure there. Or if you're a player character and you want to say, where am I from? And you want to really build a rich background for your character, you can create a world there. Or if you're just, I've seen people talk about using this book who don't actually play Starfinder or who are in a Pathfinder campaign or some other campaign and just want the many, many adventure hook ideas that we have in here, or information about biomes, like we're looking at the marsh biome art right now. There's 12 different biomes in the world building chapter that give you ideas for strange and interesting planets that might be made up of deserts or mountains or forests. But what does that look like in a science fantasy setting? Like this will tell you. And then, of course, the third chapter of the book is the sandbox chapter, which, again, is really usable by anyone who's trying to create a campaign that is far-reaching and doesn't have everything written out and railroaded for you. And it's, again, written by Jason Tondro, who is on our Adventure Path team. And that will give you advice along with a really detailed example of how do you run a game where there are, the possibilities are endless, essentially. And then, of course, you mentioned the Toolbox blog that we have. There are a bunch of tables in this book all throughout to help you randomly generate lots of interesting stuff. But, I've threatened before to talk about this, and you mentioned that we've talked about this book several times now, and I could continue to talk about it forever. So you just quiet me up whenever you need to, but...
No, I love it. That was more than an elevator speech, but that's certainly...
it was. I started there. And then...
I am happy to let you continue talking about it because it's really an amazing book, and that's the whole point of talking to someone in an elevator. You want to share your enthusiasm, right?
I guess the elevator broke down. And we had a few minutes,
exactly.
So.
I think of the amazing systems and tools and guidance and advice that's in the Pathfinder Game Mastery Guide, and then I look at what's in this rule book, and I feel like they're very complementary. In fact, I feel like anybody who is a role-playing game enthusiast, regardless of the specific game you play, both of those books, but especially the Galaxy Exploration Manual, has a lot to offer for someone who just wants to be a really strong homebrewer. I think that's really great to see. I think it's been received like that. I see on social media, I see people saying, I've got this book and I'm just going to create my own thing. And I'm so excited to do that. And it creates structure for your creativity. And that's what I think rule books are all about. And so that's why I love to shine the spotlight on it. I'm a baby Starfinder GM playing with my own group, learning it and playing on Roll20 against the Aeon Throne. And I could imagine using this book because they've asked me, well, what are the other planets like in the system? And this is an AP in which I've been given a lot of information, and it's really, really great, very well developed. But your players always ask you something that you don't know off the top of your head. And now with the, pardon me, while I reach over here, the deck of many worlds, you can start to ask those, you can start to answer those questions right away. Or with the Starfinder Galaxy Exploration Manual, like I can start to flesh out, well, what does the rest of the system look like? Because maybe they want to go off on a tangent, and that really supports my creativity in that way. So that's really exciting.
They always want to go off on a tangent.
Yeah, right. They always do. And so I feel like that's really one of the strengths of this book is the Hexploration chapter that really talks about how to structure a campaign or an adventure in which it's not linear. They're going to be exploring, and they're going to be discovering things as they go. Can be applied to Pathfinder or whatever RPG game you're playing. So,
I agree.
That's pretty awesome.
It's awesome.
So let's talk about how you might use this book in Starfinder. It's not as lore heavy. It really does talk about Hexploration. We know that Horizons of the Vast, our next adventure path, has Hexploration built into it. We have a lot of Starfinder flip mats and flip tiles that I feel like you can complement that Hexploration, because then, you're sort of in encounter mode. You're in exploration mode, and then you can use these flip mats and these flip tiles to go into encounter mode when you find something specific and you want a grid rather than a hex.
Sure.
And
we also provide in the book a sheet that has a grid of hexes for that specific mode, and lets you kind of catalog the worlds you visit, just like a character sheet, but for worlds that you're exploring. And speaking of blogs, there will be a blog about the sort of interplay between the exploration subsystem, which is one piece of this book, and that adventure path. So look forward to that.
I was inventorying all of our products in preparation for this, and I don't find that we've actually produced any hex maps specifically for Starfinder other than the Starfield yet. Does that sound right to you? Have I overlooked anything?
We use hexes just for starship combat, so it's been, we've provided one or maybe two, or maybe we're just talking about it. Hard to keep track of what's out yet and what's we're working on.
Right.
But
so maybe that's something that we
tactical combat having on the grid.
Yes. Oh, yeah. With mechs coming and vehicles, I would expect people might want to use hexes or might want to use grids depending on what your recommendations are for that.
Yeah, we did make the mech system work on a square grid since we have so much support for that. We specifically scaled it to that specifically, but do what you want, I guess. Like I said, the Galaxy Exploration Manual has that nice sheet in it that lets you track the specific Hexploration system. The other thing that it ties nicely into that you don't need to be playing Starfinder for, but if you are, it helps, is those biomes I was talking about. So when you're exploring using this hex system to explore a world, and you're going from jungle or forest to the water and then onto a mountain, you can flip to those sections and find adventure hooks and player options and inhabitants, like species that might live there or might try to eat you there. all sorts of things, along with just sort of flavor inspiration for places like that. So it all flows pretty nicely together.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's going to be really exciting to see how Starfinder grows in the weeks and months to come. Now that we have this new exploration ability and this new adventure path to kind of work out all of those details. And I think it might be fun to get people to contribute to the worlds that they are creating and get some interaction on our website and social media about all the worlds, the favorite worlds they've created with the Galaxy Exploration Manual.
I absolutely love hearing about that.
I think we're definitely going to have to ask people about the worlds they're creating, because that's a really fun conversation to be a part of. I think let's see. Is there anything else about this book that you haven't had a chance to tell people that it exists that you want to shout out about, or
just
do we want to talk about your?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh
no, I have talked about it so much that I usually roll something random. I have a desert adventure hook that I'd like to share from it, if I may, just to sort of illustrate the kinds of things.
Is that going to be your Paizo spoiler, or is this something else?
No way. This is not. This is just.
Yeah, good. This is just you sharing the adventure hook. Good.
So, a rare and beautiful medicinal flower's first super bloom in centuries is expected to occur in the foothills just outside the planet's capital city, attracting tourists, alarming surface botanists, and enticing enterprising smugglers. So, I mean, that's an adventure hook you could use in any setting, really, like any kind of game that has a planet with a capital city and a desert in it. I mean, not even a desert technically. So it's just that kind of thing. This book is chock full of that stuff, like hundreds of these kinds of things. So it's just really exciting. So I'm kind of sneaking a bonus spoiler in there. Sorry.
There you go. No, I like it. And it reminded me of the other thing that I wanted to mention that I like so much, and it's the subgenres of sci-fi and sci-fantasy. So it talks about cyberpunk, and it talks about high fantasy and several other different genres, or pure sci-fi where you're kind of removing magic entirely. I think Starfinder is a really flexible framework for playing in different genres. I think our adventure paths sort of poke around the edges of those genres, and that I think people take these rules and the structure and sort of play the game they want to play. And I think this book helps support that. Those different sort of those sci fantasy subgenres that everybody has their own favorites, So that's why I wanted to bring that up. That there is a chapter on that, or a section in the book about how to make your game your own in that regard.
And it comes with
let's move on.
Sweet art of our iconic envoy Navasi as a cowboy, which everyone seems to like. So, and I do too.
Yes, space cowboys. Exactly. Great. Then why don't we have you share that where you like to be found and what your Paizo Live spoiler is?
Okay, I'm on Twitter and Twitch as Joe Adultman. Definitely not a bunch of kids in a coat pretending to be a grown-up. My spoiler, my spoiler is for an upcoming book, Tech Revolution, which we've been pretty excited about around here. We've talked about the mech system and the nanocyte class, but there is also a system for building your own vehicles and also outfitting those vehicles with modifications, including, you can take a pre-built vehicle that we provided anywhere in our system, from Armory to the core rulebook and all the way through, and add stuff on there. So my spoiler is going to be before stream, I just looked through really quick, and I'm taking a level 1 Enercycle, which is like a hover motorcycle. And what other thing you can do is retrofit your vehicles so they stay with you through your adventuring career, right? So you're not having to change out your vehicle. You can have your Enercycle that you've had since level 1. And so I think the first mod we'll give it is wheel sides, where we stick a weapon into our wheels and we can hit people next to us with our cool wheel sides. And then later, when we level up a little more, then we'll get a hollow hull, which will let us change our appearance on the fly. So we can, zip in and out of crowds and change, into a fearsome looking entercycle and then a street bike to blend in or something. And then, of course, higher level, we can get a smoke screen, which is another classic. Flip that on and try to get away. And then my favorite is high level, but it's a blip drive, which lets us briefly enter the ethereal plane with our vehicle and come back out, which lets us disengage from other vehicles if we're in a chase and also go through obstacles. So I like to think of it as sort of night crawlering around and puffing a big puff of smoke and then flipping forward through a wall and all the shenanigans that could arise from that. So that's just, a few of the dozens of modifications and options in this vehicle system. So just wanted to share that.
Excellent. Sounds exciting. Well, my motorcycle I call Blink Dog. That's great. And yeah, shades of things to come. Can't wait to see it. Thank you, Joe. We'll leave it there for now. Aaron. And we'll have you back soon. And for now, we'll take a break. And then when we come back, we'll talk to our Pathfinder team about some of the upcoming products. So we'll see you soon.
This is the Pathfinder 2nd Edition Beginner Box, and we want to show you what's inside. On the front is an amazing illustration by artist Wayne Reynolds, and on the back is everything showcasing what's in the box and what to expect. To start, we have an instructional guide that guides you through the contents of the Beginner Box. This explains what Pathfinder is, gives you directions on how to play the solo adventure, and how to play with your friends. Then we have 4 pre-generated characters. One of Valorous the Fighter, Ezran the Wizard, Kyra the Cleric, and Mauricio the Rogue. Each of these pre-generated character sheets aims to help new players get into the game faster. You'll find helpful information on the side regarding the game, all the stats filled out for you, rules to help you play your chosen character, along with some backstory of the Pathfinder iconic you chose. You'll also notice that the character sheets have color-coded dice on the side. And in the box, you'll get 1 set of these, matching the colors to help affiliate newcomers to the different types of dice needed to play the game. To further help players are these reference cards. These have information explaining what actions you can take during your turn, what critical hits mean or critical misses, and more information to help you stay in the game and not in the books. And here is the Hero's Handbook. This handbook starts with a solo adventure, continues on with a synopsis of the game rules, and guidelines to create your own hero. The available ancestries you have available to you are the dwarf, elf, and human. You can then customize to become a cleric, fighter, rogue, or wizard. One of the important things to take away from the materials in this box is that the rules presented are the same as the Pathfinder 2nd Edition core rulebook. We did not modify the rules, only elaborated on them in the beginner box. If you and your friends decided to make their own characters instead, inside are 6 blank character sheets. Similar to the pre-gen character sheets, these also have helpful information about the game on the side and plenty of space to create your own hero. Now, as for the player telling the story, we have the Game Master Guide. This has everything you need to run a Pathfinder 2nd Edition adventure. As a full adventure you can run right away, teaching the Game Master and players the rules of the game every step of the way, along with materials to run your own campaigns with a horde of monsters to battle against. To help run the included adventure, you'll find a double-sided flip mat inside the box. This is a 24 by 30 inch playmat, coated in a substance that allows you to mark and draw various things with a dry erase marker should you need them. To help populate your table, the box contains 3 pawn sheets representing the monsters in the Game Mastery Guide, player tokens, NPCs, and action tokens, which can be used with the player reference cards to help keep track of how many actions you have left during your turn. Along with the pawn sheets, you also get these bases for you to use to help them stand up at your table. And finally is a presentation of the Pathfinder Society, where either you're playing at home, online, conventions, or your favorite local hobby store, you can join thousands of Pathfinders today and start playing at paizo.com/organized play. On the back is an advisory for those wishing to continue the adventure, mentioning the troubles in Otari adventure that continues the story of the beginner box, along with options to continue building and expanding your stories. And that's everything in the Pathfinder 2nd Edition Beginner Box. You can start your adventure now by ordering yours at paizo.com or by visiting your friendly local game store to begin your journeys. Stay safe and farewell, and we hope to hear about your adventures soon.
Gather your crew and prepare to embark on the journey of a lifetime as you explore the packed worlds of the Starfinder universe, taking on the role of a science fantasy hero customized to fit your playstyle. But danger lurks amongst the stars. Will you fight back with advanced weaponry and cunning tactics? Or will your hero wield the devastating forces that fuse magic and technology together to alter reality? Your crew must come together if you have any hope of victory. In Starfinder, every decision drives the adventure as you build an epic saga with your friends. Bring your story to life in a game where the fate of the worlds rests on the answer to the most important question of all. What do you do? Begin your journey into the Starfinder universe today with the Starfinder Beginner Box, now available at Paizo.com, your local gaming store, and anywhere else adventure can be found.
Hi, and welcome back to Paizo Live. This is our Pathfinder segment. My name is Aaron Shanks, and I'm your host. I'm Paizo's Marketing and Media Manager. Today on the panel, we'll have James Case and James Jacobs. So let's meet James Case. Let's bring you on and say hello.
Hi, everyone. I'm
Hi,
James Case. I'm one of the two Jameses today. I'm a designer working on Pathfinder.
Yes, Pathfinder Designer. Although I think today you're going to be wearing a couple hats as author and designer. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was also the author for the third volume of the Fist of the Ruby Phoenix tournament, King of the Mountain.
Indeed. Welcome. Yeah. Nice to have you. And let's bring on James Jacobs as well. Hello, James.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Yeah, James is our Pathfinder creative director. Yeah. All is well. Hopefully, we were a little worried that there might be a fire alarm going on at James Jacobs' place.
It's still possible.
It's still possible? Great.
They chose today to do the apartment testing of all the fire alarms and all that. And we might come in your apartment and your alarms will be going off. And they went off for about
excellent
a minute, like about an hour ago. So I'm assuming they're just saving up.
See what happens. Well, thank you both for joining me. I think we'd like to talk about 4 topics today. Fists of the Ruby Phoenix and Secrets of Magic, and then Dinner at Lionlodge and Malevolence. And let's start with you, James Case, about Fists of the Ruby Phoenix. All 3 volumes are dropping at the same time this July 7th, just about 10 days from now, more or less. And that's exciting. So we've had, I think it was Luis Loza on to talk about Volume 1. And who was the lead developer?
That was Patrick Arini, was the developer coordinating the project.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So we've had Patrick and we've had Luis talking about their portions of this trilogy, and now we're happy to have you talking about Volume 3. So I understand you were the author of the plot of the adventure, and then there's some back matter that you were involved in as well. And probably that supported the story. What were your inspirations for writing this third volume? What did you pull from? What did you have in mind?
So when this first started out, we have the Ruby Phoenix tournament, which is, Galarian's greatest fighting tournament. It's kind of the Olympics of punching things and shooting spells at things. And so that's where we started. And I know Luis's first one is the qualifier, where you're on this kind of deserted island that's full of all the other teams and also a bunch of monsters and spirits that you have to get through the qualifier. And then the second one, Ready Fight by David Ross, has you actually in the tournament itself. some stuff happens at the end of the tournament, and if you've ever seen any tournament arc in anything, it never goes quite as planned, and Haojin ends up disappearing at the end of it. So where my book picks up is basically saying, okay, well, the tournament is still going, and we don't know where our grand judge is. Go find her, and a lot of stuff happens there. So that was kind of the outline I got from Patrick. That had a bunch of plot beats in it, and so while the first two were very kind of tournament, they were very like anime tournament arcy, as well as pulling on some like traditional mythology and just some general cultural notes. I mean, it's very much, it's a big sports tournament. The third one is very JRPG. You're on this adventure through the Iron Mountains, and you come back into contact with all of the teams that you've kind of interacted with during the tournament. So that can be really fun if maybe there's one of the teams that if you're running it and you find that your players bonded really closely to one of the other teams, then maybe that's a thing that like they can come back in. They find this team off in the Iron Mountains also trying to find Haojin, and maybe you can work together. Maybe if they were a rival team, it doesn't go quite that smoothly. So there's a lot of chances to sort of bring back those characters. And at the end, it gets very planar. Although I'm not going to say a whole lot more about that.
Yeah. We I don't think the art we have is too spoilery. It is a high level adventure. It's I think 18 to 20.
Yeah.
So it's up there. And the stakes are high.
It is one of the nice things about this, this instead of 1 to 20 levels, 6 volume, we're doing the 3 and 3. That is one of the nice things about it, because having, the planet's greatest martial arts tournament isn't exactly a thing you maybe come into as a level 1 character. So, anything to involve Haojin, who's kind of one of the, top level sorcerers on the planet, probably has to be a pretty high level too. So I think that this was a good one to be our first, starting at 11 going to 20. It just seems like a suitably high level concept. And did it allow you to sort of dive into the setting a little more and develop some aspects, cultural aspects that hadn't been explored before, or is the fact that it gets really planar allowed you to just invent things that were kind of wild and crazy, or did you look to particular myths to guide you? Yeah, I think the second one takes place in Goka, and we had I know during PaizoCon we had Yvonne on to talk about what she did with that, and I think that that's the one that has a lot more of the kind of more ground level influence. In my adventure, you're off in a very high level part of the world. You have mountains that are piercing the heavens. You have weird volcanic calderas that are sealed off from time and space. It's maybe not as much influence from ground level stuff, but I did pull from a lot of mythology here and there. And also there's some things in Galarian canon that were just kind of noted once or twice in a book, and then we've never really gone back to them. There is art we showed off at PaizoCon of this big dragon that was noted a long time ago in one of our books, and we never went back to it. And Patrick was like, "Yeah, I want us to meet that dragon on screen and see what it looks like." And so that was a cool. Oh yeah, there they are. So that was,
and I can tell you that image is cropped.
That's bigger, a full.
It's
that's a full.
It's big
page.
And gorgeous.
Yeah, there's a lot more there that you're not seeing, but that's nice because that's maybe a little bit more of a spoiler. But so it was cool to go back and pick up those little one-offs that were noted, as adventure seeds years and years ago, and kind of bring them up. And then there's also a lot of things from myths that I pulled in. There are some monsters that I made to kind of what's a good way to say this? There's a couple set pieces in the adventure where you get into a fight that are kind of pulling on some pretty archetypical kind of myth things. There's one that is my personal favorite that is basically an evil bone dance. Bone dances are something we have a lot back in Hawaii. They're like a summer festival dance. And I was like, well, what if it was that, but with a bunch of monsters, and they're all just dancing in a circle, and you have to like kind of defeat them while they're trying to like make you dance with them forever. So maybe not so much grounded stuff, but a lot of kind of I got kind of wahoo with some things, but I figured it was a level 20. It was a level 20 extra planar adventure. May as well.
Excellent, thank you, James. James Jacobs? Did you interact with Mr. Case much on this adventure, or just sort of?
No, I've been pretty isolated in Kingmaker for the last 18 months.
Right. Fortunately, you have a team that can take the ball and run with it. So, so everyone has been producing amazing adventures based on the groundwork that's already come before. And we'll save Kate
on there too. So,
indeed. Well, yes. I mean, you were writing Malevolence and Dinner at Lionlodge, which we'll be talking about momentarily. Let's stay focused on the other project that James Case worked on, and that's Secrets of Magic. As a designer, we really got to dive deep into that at Paizo Con, and I think you were a panelist there. Lots of spoilers, lots of reveals. But what did you work on particularly in that hardcover? Go ahead.
That was, I think, the first thing I worked on when I came onto the design team. That was a thing. Logan has been running the project a lot. So, I mean, the overall structure of the book and a lot of the, innovations were things that he was really passionate about. There's a lot of, including a lot of grounding fiction around the sides or setting the tone so you get this really rich view of the mechanics. Some of the stuff that I came in when I first started was a bunch of the different new classes of magic items. So we have a bunch of new, standard items that we've had since core. We have new runes, we have new, armors, we have new magic weapons, that kind of thing. But there's also a whole lot of new classes of items, basically. We have grimoires, which are spell books that have special effects when you use them. We have spell catalysts, which gives you that thing where you could cast your spell normally and you don't need anything extra, but if you expend this one special ingredient, it'll empower your spell. So those are really cool. What was the third one I came in on? Fulus, which are a kind of talisman that they bridge a little bit into Ruby Phoenix. They're also from some Chinese practices, which are paper talismans you can affix to things to give them special powers above and beyond what normal talismans would do. So that was kind of the first thing I came in on, was these new classes of items, which was a lot of fun because you could push the boundaries a little bit from like the kinds that we had already. So
something innovative that would allow you to use the mechanics of Pathfinder 2nd Edition in a different way. That's really exciting.
Yeah, it was.
And I think that gives us an understanding of what it was you were doing in the project and in the book. We know that, of course, it's going to introduce 2 new classes: the Summoner and
the Magus.
The Magus. And those were sort of assigned to, I think, Mark and Logan, as I recall.
Yeah, Logan was the primary designer on the Magus, and Mark was for the Summoner. I mean, all the designers see the classes; they're such big touch points. But so I think what I did there was less direct the overall flow of the class and kind of come in and provide another opinion, or just continue to workshop the ideas, or just little bits and pieces here and there. Of the 2 of them, I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed working on the Magus a lot. I think the way that it changed from playtest was really cool. Now Logan added this whole cascade stance that you go into when you cast a spell, and then you have, obviously we have new hybrid studies. So there's all different ways that you can kind of focus, whether you're using a big 2-handed weapon or whether you're doing a ranged weapon, or that kind of thing. And
yeah, it
one of
seemed
the
to be
things
really well received.
Yeah, one of the things
The
I was
changes
happy
seem to be.
to try and streamline through was a way that you could also do that with your unarmed attacks as well. So that was just a fun way you can put in. I think one of the sample character arts is a catfolk doing mega stuff, but like empowering their claws instead of a sword or something. So I just kind of like that.
Reinforcing the incredible character customization that Pathfinder Second Edition offers. There's the archetypical Magus with a sword and casting spells, and our iconic represents that. But there's just going to be so many other ways in which you can take that class concept and run with it, or apply a different archetype to it, so that it works just a little differently. So it's going to be fun to see what everybody does with it. Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to have to. That's a theme here. I think as we talk, as I was talking to Joe Pasini, and we want to see what kind of Starfinder worlds people build. We want to see what kind of characters people build with Pathfinder. I think it's fun to see that when we get together at conventions and organized play events. But I think I'd love to have people contribute via social media and on the forums a little more, so we know what they're doing. I think that's going to be really fun
for sure. Yeah.
James Jacobs, let's switch back over to you and talk a little bit about something that I think we hinted at last time you were on, which was the one shot. We didn't have a name at the time, but it was revealed just before PaizoCon, and that's Dinner at Lionlodge. And that is our second Pathfinder one shot. And in this case, we revealed it. The name and a little bit about it before PaizoCon, and then everybody got to watch it as a live play played by our friends at Glass Cannon, which was incredible and intense and went on a little longer than I think they anticipated. But I do find that these one-shots, it's true of one-shots, and I think, even at the beginning of the program, Jenny was talking about some organized play folks who were playing a Starfinder Society scenario that lasted hours and hours because of the role play that you put into it. I think a lot of these games vary in the length that some people like to take their time in the telling, and some people like to really run through things. So there's a little variability when you call something a one shot, and it kind of depends on the players, of course. What were your inspirations behind Dinner at Lionlodge, and how did the project first come about?
So it's interesting. We first started talking about doing these one shots many months ago. What we originally wanted to do was to have a way that we could get an adventure from inception to people playing it really quickly. It would allow us to decide to support, if we wanted to do a Halloween theme adventure, we could do that pretty quickly, or support a late trend in a product that we're doing or something like that. And then the idea that we also could produce these short adventures so that they'd really be streamlined to be streamed, so people could play them online, or show them live play, all playing out. So there was a couple of different sort of competing elements there. We also really like the idea of including pre-generated characters in all of these, because that lets us really focus on the type of story. Earlier in the show, you were talking about the difficulties of writing adventures because you don't have protagonists, and it's true. It's a really off-putting way to tell a story when you don't know what the main characters are up to. You don't even know whether they're going to be, good guys or bad guys or what. So you can kind of guess. With something like the what we're doing with the one shots, we know exactly who your characters are, and we could specifically make adventures to play to their specific strengths and abilities and all of that. With Dinner at Lionlodge, one of the things that really happened early on is we were just finishing up work on the Ancestry Guide, and we knew we wanted to show off a lot of the really cool new options you had in that book to build your characters. And so the first idea that I really had in there was sort of based on the old story of The Most Dangerous Game, where it's like you go to some sort of event in some remote location, and it turns out you are the event. You're not there to actually have dinner. So there's maybe a little bit of spoilers coming up here, but I mentioned in the last one that there was a pun in the title, and the idea was lion is lying, like it's all a lie what you're really going there to do. But yeah, you get the tables literally turned on you, and you have to fight for your life when you thought you were just going for a fun little dinner up in the mountains. The tricky thing with a lot of these is that we still, when Jason and I wrote the first two kind of side by side, we were having a little bit of, like how many encounters do we put in here? Do we want to make sure that it's varied up? Or is it just one big fight? So there was a fair amount of like kind of exploring there. I think as we keep going, we've got the third one in the works right now. We'll keep dialing things in and getting things where we want them to be. So hopefully they won't all be things that take, hours and hours to go through. You can like play them and enjoy them. That said, I think we've all been in games where it's like the GM is like, all right, this is the adventure where this, and this is going to happen. And the entire like 7-hour session is just, you and the player characters hanging out in the tavern talking about shopping or, getting distracted. So that's fun too.
Yeah, you never know. It just depends on the group that's getting together to play the game. I mean, we play test these things, so we have an idea of how long they're going to take, and there's a lot of wisdom and experience in how many encounters it's going to take to fill an hour, or 3 or 5. But I also know that I mean, it's okay to split these up into a couple of nights too. I know that these are. These one-shots are designed to be played. I mean, they're sort of designed to be played online on Twitch or just online in general, or at a VTT, I should say. It's just because they're so they've got lots of JPEGs of the maps and the characters and the creatures, so they're really designed to be really really digital and really support that style of play. So that's new and different and exciting, and but there's no reason why you can't split that up into 2 or 3 events over several days if you want to take your time, but I think it's also a good way to kind of get a feel for Pathfinder. Dive into these pre-generated characters and it's not self-contained in that. I mean, you still have to have access to the core rulebook and know, and some of the rulebooks and know how the game works. But otherwise, it's very much sort of delivered to you on a platter with pre-generated characters and a very interesting plot and lots of gorgeous art, so that you can take the ball and run with it. And I think that's new and different and pretty interesting. So any other thoughts about how this adventure came together, or things that you loved about it that you really enjoyed?
I really struggle with short adventures, honestly. This one I blew my word count by I think 4,000 words. I kind of wrote the entire thing and then realized, I need to create these player characters, and that was part of the word count. So it's really, really difficult to get a compelling plot line with interesting NPCs all into a really kind of a short window like that. And then with Lionlodge, one of the tricky things there is it diverges right in the middle. So depending upon whether or not your characters figure out what's going on beforehand, or they completely, fall for the entire thing and, get in over their heads, the plot line kind of can go either left or right. It's a case where, I mean, to use a non-spoiler anthology, it could be something where an adventure is set up that you go to meet the king, and you have a big sort of, public presentation of what you're doing, and then the king decides actually the real reason you're there is you're getting thrown in jail. And the adventure at that point could be written in a way that assumes that you get thrown into the jail and you have to escape, or that you figure out what the king's up to and you have to like kind of get out ahead of things and maybe turn the tables on the king, so that all of a sudden he's the one who's kind of trying to fight for his freedom. And with Dinner at Lionlodge, I kind of wanted to have both of those options equally supported. So that sort of ended up being 2 adventures into one. So be interesting to see, just looking at like how people play, which one people kind of went for more often.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to get feedback from people as they play it. I know I'm going to be, I work a lot with our our Pathfinder and Starfinder content creators, the folks who are doing Twitch shows and podcasts and YouTube, creating YouTube content. And I really am encouraging them to take these one shots and play them for the public to kind of showcase how fun they can be. And they're sort of bite-sized too, right? You can just take a break from your larger plot line and dive into one of these and have a nice little adventure and showcase it. So it'll be fun to see what they do, all the choices they make, just like it was fun to see what Glass Cannon did with it. We have a couple of comments from Twitch, that of course it plays very well on virtual tabletop. And that the one shot was really great for play by post as well, where you're online and just line by line playing by post. I'm sure it takes that style of play, I would think takes a while or is a longer play style. But then again, once you get proficient at it may move right along. It does,
but it also has the advantage of you don't all have to be playing at the same time. You could spread it out over the course of like a weekend or several weeks or something like that. And it just kind of is. It's a place. It's a lot. I haven't done a lot of play by post myself, but I've done some of them, and it's a sort of a different sort of. It's more of like an interactive fiction type thing where you're working with the other people, kind of making the story, and you have like an entire story all when you're done with it. That it kind of writes its own journals. So that's kind of a neat side effect of those.
That is, you can all read it afterwards and relish the story. That's great. Before we move on to Malevolence, we've got a question here. Now, this is very specific, James Case, and it has to do with Secrets of Magic and the Mega Spell Strike. Do you know?
Let's see if I can field it or not.
Yeah, it might not be in your area, but it's very specific. Does the spell strike provoke reactions if the spell has somatic or material components? Does that question make sense?
Yeah. So that's about whether, you're going to get attack of opportunity if you're spell striking.
Right.
I don't believe, and I'm not 100% sure on this, that the Magus has anything that would make it operate outside the normal rules on that. So if the enemy has an ability that would let them make a reaction, I think they would, but please don't quote me on that because I haven't read that one very deeply. What I do know is that the Magus,
very specific.
What I do know is that the Magus does have, they're an arcane caster, so they have normal arcane spell lists, but they also, of course, have a lot of specific focus spells for them. And I know they have a lot of focus spells that are meant to slot in at that last action. A lot of them are verbal only. So like a lot of their more unique spells maybe are ones where there's less room for the opponent to come in on you on that one. And they fill up
sort of designed for Right. Yeah, it's designed for that style of combat. Which is really what that class is all about.
Yeah. But as for specifically not getting attack of opportunity, I'm not sure I can quite pull that out of my head right now.
We will know soon enough. Thank you. Let's go back and talk a little bit about the Pathfinder standalone adventure, Malevolence. We did get a chance to talk about it about 60 days ago or so when you were last on with us. Of course, it's a haunted house adventure, and it releases along with a flip mat on this July 7th, and people are getting their hands on it now. Our subscribers are able to get their early copies of PDFs, and so they're pouring over it. Now, this one sounds like a perfect Halloween adventure because it's a haunted house, but that's sort of timeless as well. I wanted to revisit it and I know what I wanted to say. It was that for subscriptions, it's actually never too late to subscribe. These products have started to be shipped out to subscribers, but if you're interested in making a product like the Galaxy Operations Exploration Manual or Malevolence, you can start your subscription and go backwards to the product we just shipped until the next one in that subscription line is available. So and then you have the ease of knowing that all the products in that product line are going to be sent your way, nice and easy. So I wanted to make sure people knew that was never too late to subscribe and get those benefits. James, we for someone who doesn't know what Malevolence is, maybe we can recap it a little bit. I mentioned it's a haunted house. Where in Galarian does it take place?
So Malevolence is set in the nation of Ravenel. It's a pretty new location, seceded from Cheliax. It's its own sort of founding, finding its own way in this post Hell's Rebels, Hell's Vengeance era that we did back in first edition with the adventure pass there. But the entire adventure is really set inside this
house
and on the manor grounds surrounding it. So you can uproot it and put it anywhere you want as long as they can build a house there. It's definitely got a lot of its history and lore tied into Cheliax and the region. You'll note this picture. There's a single light glowing in that upper window. That is a specific encounter that is waiting to hit you when you get there. One thing that was really actually kind of fun with Malevolence is that normally when I write an adventure, I'll write the adventure, and then if I have a chance, I'll playtest it after it's written. Malevolence sort of went in the reverse. I was running a game for a bunch of folks here at the office, and it was really a sandbox where I was set in this town of Crook Cove on the southwestern border of Ravenel, and basically let the player characters just dive into this kind of seedy little criminally backwater town and let them go where they wanted. And one of the characters in that group had a deed to an old house up on the hill, and I knew that they would. I didn't know, but I was pretty sure they were going to go up there at some point. And so it was a case of once they started exploring this creepy house up at the hill, I had 2 or 3 encounters in my head, and I just kind of kept ahead of the party as they kept exploring. A lot of cases, they'd start doing something like, oh, what if this happens, or what if that happens? And you can kind of take what the players are doing and go with it. So it makes it really feel organic, like the players get the feeling that we figured this out really pretty well. We, saw the clues and all this stuff. What they don't really realize is that they were the ones that were telling you as the GM what the storyline really is about. So it was fun kind of building it out that way. And then several months later, the player characters never really kind of finished exploring this house, but Adam Daigle was one of the players in that group. And he said, dude, you should totally write this up as an adventure, and that way it'll be easy for me to develop. And so I did, and it was a lot of fun. It was the first time that I'd actually written an entire standalone adventure for Paizo of this on this scale, and it's a storyline that I've always been into horror and haunted house and ghosts and aliens and things that go bump in the night, and this has a lot of elements in it that I really wanted to get into an adventure. It started way back in first edition with the Skinsaw murders in Burnt Offerings when we had a haunted house in that one. And I came up with this whole mechanic for haunts, traps that are like actually unquiet spirits that are trapped in a location and they do something sort of like a trap, but they're not. They're sort of like undead, but they're not. And I wanted to do something more like not necessarily with haunts, but with the way that you find out why a location is haunted. And that's one of the things that always intrigues me about haunted house stories is this history. As you're going through, you're discovering why this place is haunted and what caused all of these elements in the house's history that made it such an awful place. And in a lot of adventures, you go into a room, you fight the monster, you take its treasure. You don't really learn a lot about what's going on in the background. And with Malevolence, I managed to set up it's about 7 or 8 pages of kind of research that you can do either by looking into like old books you find in the house or studying paintings, or even like if you fall asleep on the house, the manor grounds, you'll start having these weird dreams and you can start learning more about the history of the location in that way as well. So it's really kind of just everything that I love about haunted houses and all of the tropes that go into those kind of compressed into this 72-page adventure. And I managed to get an extra 8 pages out of Eric for this one. One of the things that I actually had a lot of fun with is the nature of this haunting. You get a lot of the case of like, why don't people just run away? Why do people stick around? And that's baked into this entire. There's a new condition that you may get afflicted on your character that prevents you from wanting to leave. Certainly is something that is impacting a lot of the people inside the house that is sort of, they're kind of getting addicted being in this horrible place.
It's a little Hotel California. That's great.
Well, yeah, a little bit a little bit like the Colorado Space, where it's kind of like makes you want to stay in the place because, you know, if this house is haunted and it wants to absorb you and use what you have, there's a very specific part of your body that the haunting in this house wants for itself. And if you leave, it can't get it because ghosts can't travel. They're not world travelers. So yeah, there's a very specific reason why you don't want to. You want to get away, but you're not going to be able to get away until you solve the situation.
All right. I think that will wet everyone's whistle as to what this adventure is about without spoiling anything. Yeah, there is a flip mat that comes with it, and if you're looking for, there's a PDF version of it as well, so you can get it digitally. And it also releases July 7th, and so you can pre-order it now and study it and read it as the GM, and then start to plan your spooky autumn haunted house October adventure, because it sounds like it's one of those that you might. I mean, let's be honest, some of us are going to devour it and be ready to go the next day, but some people might want to really take their time to read it and understand all the ramifications and the history of this house, so that they're going to be able to GM it. Let's wrap this up by just having James Jacobs. How do you like to be found? Are you available on the Paizo forums? Is that the main way?
Yeah, that's the main way. If you want to get a hold of me, I lurk on the forums pretty regularly. I have this ginormous Ask James questions thread, so I'm pretty good at like checking in on that. So if you have any questions about anything, drop a question in there and I'll answer it, or I won't. Usually I answer
or you won't, exactly. And do you have a Paizo Live spoiler that you might want to share with us tonight about something coming up in the future?
Sure. I've like I mentioned earlier, I've been spending the last many months working on Kingmaker. That's mostly behind me. I'm doing a little bit of copy fitting now, but it's pretty exciting right now that I'm shifting gears into actual modern stuff and working on new things, which is pretty exciting to me. I'm going to be handling a lot of the standalone adventures going forward. And one of the things I really want to do with those adventures is to make sure that they're all really, either hitting specific classic storylines, like the haunted house, or that they're presenting major events that have something to bring to Golarion to advance the storyline. So the next one coming up is Night of the Grey Death. It's set in Galt, and this is the adventure path where your player characters can potentially resolve this decades of turmoil and civil war and unrest in Galt. So if you do the right things, you can save Galt. If you don't, it's a TPK, and maybe the next group will do better. But that's not the spoiler I wanted to say. The spoiler I want to say is that next year, one of these adventures is looking like it's going to be a sequel to a adventure path, and that's I'm not going to say which one, but it's pretty cool looking so far.
So we're talking a Pathfinder standalone adventure that's a sequel to a Pathfinder adventure path.
It's a sequel to an adventure path and a sequel to at least one other standalone adventure we've done. So it's...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Great. All right, Mr. Case. How can people... Where do you like to be found?
I am on the forums, and I am mostly on Twitter, although my Twitter handle is not spec'd for putting it verbally, so I will just drop it in the chat, which I have just done.
There you go. So. Yes, there. Thank you kindly. So you're available on Twitter, and do you have a Paizo Live spoiler for us tonight?
I do. I will spoil something from my AP because I wrote it, so I can.
There you go.
I think it is a pretty deadly adventure. That's what I was asked to write, and that's what I wrote. But I think to help give you an edge, something that I put in, because I was just like, these are the tropes we're working with. Let's just go all in on them. Was you all know that in a tournament arc, the best way to make friends is to defeat people, because after you fought, you understand each other. So you have all of these teams, and you can get close with them, or not, over the course of the adventure. And if you help to resolve some of the other teams' things, you may find yourself with maybe one of their secret techniques, or that kind of thing, that you can call on them, and you can use some of their techniques that they've used against you in the tournament, and they might be there to help you out in this pretty deadly planar adventure.
Possible allies, or at least absorbing their special skills.
Yeah.
That's great. All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me tonight. That is all. I'll say goodnight and remind everyone that you can follow us on all of our social media accounts. You can find us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and YouTube, and here on Twitch. And please keep in touch with us on the Paizo forums at paizo.com. Until next month, join us again for Paizo Live. Thank you.